in the serene convent of St. Catherine, nestled on the outskirts of a bustling city. Sister Clare was a beacon of grace and devotion, revered by her fellow sisters and admired by the townsfolk. She was known for her humility, compassion, and unwavering faith. Having taken her vows at a young age, Clare had dedicated her life to serving God, forsaking worldly desires. But one morning, the air in the convent seemed heavy with whispers. Sister Clare, pale and trembling, could no longer hide the undeniable truth she was pregnant. The discovery shook the convent to its core. Mother Superior, a stern yet compassionate woman, summoned Clare to her chambers. "Child," she said, her voice a mixture of disappointment and concern, "how has this happened? You took a sacred vow." Clare, overwhelmed with guilt and shame, explained her encounter from months prior. She described the stormy night when she had stayed late in the neighboring village, tending to the sick. On her way back, she had sought shelter in an abandoned chapel and encountered a man, a stranger with an otherworldly presence. He spoke with such wisdom and grace, Clare whispered, tears in her eyes. I thought he was a lost traveler seeking guidance, but in my moment of weakness, I failed my vow. The sisters were divided. Some were furious, accusing Clare of tarnishing the convent's reputation. Others pitied her, seeing her as a woman who had fallen victim to temptation in a moment of vulnerability. As the weeks passed, whispers grew louder, not only in the convent, but also in the town. The townsfolk, already intrigued by the nuns' secluded lives, began to speculate about Clare's pregnancy. Who is the father? They asked. Is she a fallen woman, or is this a sign from God? Meanwhile, Clare herself was haunted by memories of the man. His words had been so profound, his presence so magnetic, that she questioned whether their meeting had been ordinary or divine. Adding to her unease was a recurring dream, the man standing in a field of light, speaking in a language she could not understand, while the child in her womb seemed to stir as though responding. When Clare's pregnancy became visible, the townspeople began to scorn her openly. A fallen sister, they whispered. She has brought shame to the convent. Children pointed at her on the rare occasions she ventured out, and even some parishioners stopped attending Mass, claiming the convent had been tainted. Mother Superior, though visibly torn, decided to keep Clare within the convent walls, hoping to shield her from the growing hostility. We must wait for God's will to reveal itself, she told the other sisters. But her faith was tested daily as she struggled to balance compassion for Clare with her responsibility to uphold the convent's reputation. Months later, on a stormy night reminiscent of the one that had changed her life, Clare went into labor. The sisters, despite their mixed feelings, rallied around her, offering prayers and support. The cries of a newborn echoed through the convent, and the storm outside miraculously subsided. When the child was brought forth, gasps filled the room. The baby's eyes were a piercing gold, and a faint glow seemed to emanate from his skin. The sisters were awestruck, and some fell to their knees, whispering prayers. Is this child a blessing or a curse? One of them murmured. News of the miraculous child spread quickly, reaching the ears of the local bishop. He arrived at the convent with a group of priests to assess the situation. They questioned Clare relentlessly, seeking to determine whether the child's conception was of human or divine origin. The bishop declared the child to be a mystery of faith, decreeing that he would be raised by the church, to ensure his influence was directed to all God's work. Clare, however, was given an ultimatum. She could remain in the convent, but she would have to surrender her child. Clare was torn. She had taken vows to serve God, but the bond she felt with her son was unbreakable. How can I abandon him? She asked Mother Superior. Is this not a test of my faith and love? One night, Claire prayed fervently for guidance as she knelt in the chapel. The faint voice of the man she had met months ago seemed to whisper through the air, "You must protect him." The next morning, Claire made her decision. She would leave the convent and raise her child herself. "I cannot turn my back on him," she told the sisters. "This is my path now." Claire and her son, whom she named Emmanuel, moved to a remote village far from the city. Life was humble, but Emmanuel brought joy to everyone he met. As he grew, it became clear that he was no ordinary child. He possessed an uncanny ability to heal wounds, calm tempers, and inspire those around him. But Emmanuel also carried an air of mystery. He would often gaze at the stars, speaking in a strange language, and claimed to have memories of places he had never been. "Mama," he once said, "I think I've been here before." When Emmanuel turned 5, Claire encountered the man again. This time, he appeared in her dreams, standing in the same field of light. "He is destined for greatness," the man said, "but his path will not be easy. Protect him until he is ready." Claire woke with a start, her heart pounding. Who was this man? An angel, a saint, or something else entirely? The question lingered, but she resolved to follow his advice. As Emmanuel grew, his abilities became more pronounced. People began to travel from distant villages to seek his help, and whispers of his miraculous deeds reached even the church. One day, when he was 12, a group of priests arrived, requesting an audience. Emmanuel met them with a calm maturity beyond his years. "I know why you've come," he said, "but my time has not yet come." The priests left, puzzled but respectful. Claire knew that Emmanuel's destiny was unfolding, though she could not foresee where it would lead. Years passed, and Emmanuel grew into a young man of unparalleled wisdom and kindness. His reputation as a healer and guide spread far and wide, and people from neighboring villages and even distant lands came to seek his help. Despite the admiration, Emmanuel remained humble, always crediting his mother for her unwavering love and faith. One fateful day, as Claire sat outside their modest home, she noticed a large crowd approaching. Among them were priests, elders, and even a bishop from the church, accompanied by townsfolk from the village she had left behind. The bishop, now much older, stepped forward and knelt before Emmanuel, his voice trembling with awe. "We have heard of your works, young man," he said. "The light you bring, the lives you've touched. It is clear you are no ordinary soul. Tell us, who are you, and what is your purpose?" Emmanuel gazed at the crowd, his golden eyes calm yet piercing. "I am but a servant of the Creator," he said. "My purpose is to bring hope where there is despair, unity where there is division, and love where there is hatred. My journey is not for my glory, but for the good of all." His words moved the crowd to tears. Many who had doubted Claire now saw the truth. She had raised a child not born of ordinary means, but destined to bring light into the world. That evening, Emmanuel and Claire sat together beneath a vast sky filled with stars. Claire, now older but still radiant with the strength of a mother's love, looked at her son with pride and gratitude. "I didn't understand it back then," she admitted, her voice soft. "Why God chose me, why I had to leave everything behind. But now I see it clearly. You are my greatest blessing, Emmanuel." Emmanuel took her hand, his gaze tender. "And you are my foundation, Mama. Without your love, I would not be who I am." As they sat together, the man from Claire's dreams appeared once more. This time not as a vision, but in the flesh. His form glowed faintly, and his voice was warm. "You have done well, Claire," he said. "Your faith and sacrifice have prepared Emmanuel for what lies ahead. The world is in need of his light, and you were chosen to nurture it." Claire bowed her head, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered, her heart filled with peace. As Emmanuel's mission grew, he traveled far and wide, spreading messages of love, healing, and unity. Though his path took him away from Claire, he visited her often, always reminding her of the role she played in his destiny. When Claire passed peacefully years later, Emmanuel stood by her side, holding her hand as she took her final breath. "Rest now, Mama," he said. "Your work here is done, but your love will guide me forever." The villagers built a small chapel in her honor, a place where mothers and children could come to seek solace and strength. Emmanuel's story, intertwined with Claire's, became a legend, a testament to the power of faith, sacrifice, and the mysterious ways of the divine.